this heaven? No. It's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous Podcast with the guys from IA Wrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Wrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show.
Welcome back to the Potentially Dangerous Podcast. I am your host, Ross Bartachek. Joining me on the mic, one of our regulars, founders, owners, all around wrestling mind is Mr. Tony Hager. Tony, how you doing tonight?
You do not sound fired up. Let's go. Come on.
Let's go. All
right. The week of Ohio State. We've got IWCOA Girls State. We've got the Iowa USA Wrestling State Championship. We got a lot freaking going on this week. So let's get a little fired up here. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to give you the reverence because, this IA Wrestle podcast, Potentially Dangerous, started with Tony Hager and Ross Bartachek. It was a dream. We built it up. And we're 150 episodes plus in. And, it's one of those things that we've built in, but over the last few years, we've been struggling. We're kind of like our guests we're going to get to. We share a lot of similarities with them in how much, we kind of hit this wall, and now we're trying to build back into this regular schedule. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce who else is on the show tonight. We got Brandon Olinger of the Inside Trip, Ohio boy. Brandon, can you introduce yourself, say how you're doing?
Yeah, I think I can handle that much. Thanks for having me, guys. Doing phenomenal. When you reached out to me about coming on this podcast with you guys, I was super excited about it. You couldn't have picked a better year to have me on your podcast for the Iowa versus Ohio State week. I mean, there's going to be so much that I'm going to have to put into this conversation. That's not going to be positive for Ohio State fans. So I'm pumped to do this. But I'm going to need you to get pumped up, Ross. Come on, get me pumped up.
All right. So let me come out guns blazing. I tweeted. I mean, obviously, I teased that Inside Trip's going to be on the Potentially Dangerous podcast this week, and you guys were like, "Hey, where was the invite like 2 years ago?" And I got to address the matter. I didn't do it on social media, but. Obviously, the podcast has done a little bit of a transformation over the last 18 months, I'll say. And the last 6 months explicitly, I've started doing a little bit more producing of the show. Tony's been a wonderful mentor of getting me set up and ready to go. And I've tried to take hold of the reins, and we're trying some new things. Last week, our listeners heard from Drew Castler and of our sister website, NEWrestle.com. Gave us a really good breakdown of that. Yeah, sister. Kissing your sister.
Not brother, sister.
Yeah, exactly. Kissing your sister. Ohio State fans know exactly about that from the Big Ten Championships not that long ago. But, we had Drew on last week, and I felt like that was a really good breakdown. We talked a lot about a lot of those matches, and there was 10 matches. Iowa was favored in 9, and we talked about those. And I was like, both me and Drew were like, every one of these is going to come down to the wire, except for maybe Spencer Lee and Tony Cassiope. And I think outside of those 2 matches, we were probably spot on. So we thought, hey, let's roll the dice. Let's put some chips down. Let her ride. Let's see if we can bring in somebody from Ohio and recreate the magic.
No, I'm all about it, guys. I'm excited to do this with you. Thanks again for having me on. You said introduce myself. I think you already said it. Part of the Inside Trip Wrestling podcast, me and my partner, Ben Watson, who is not with us tonight. Yes, we are Ohio guys. Yes, we root for Ohio State. We call it how it is, and we like to cover all types of wrestling. So You mentioned something about kissing the sister at the Big Ten championships a few years ago. I'm going to assume you're talking about the Buckeyes tying with Iowa. So I'll just assume that we have the hotter sister than you because we won. Can I just throw that out there?
Very true.
Yeah, it's hard to argue.
Probably the blonde.
But hey, and obviously, you know, Inside Trip. Anybody that cross listens to those podcasts, I feel like so Inside Trip is it's not an Ohio State podcast. It's a national podcast. It's a lot like Blood Round that
right.
We're very integrated with. We've done a lot of cross promotion with them because we love #Blood Round. So I got to know what kind of vino is in the glass of Brando tonight.
Oh man, I got so excited for this. I just ran to the store, got me some cheap $7.99 Dark Horse Cabernet. Got me a couple of prime cans of Coors Light. Just the finest beers for an IA Wrestle podcast, in my opinion. So I'm ready to go. I got a bottle of wine. I got 3 beers sitting in front of me. So I can't guarantee by the end of this that that you won't just mute me by then. But let's have some fun. I'm ready to have some fun.
I wanted to ask that. I'm not saying you're going to get drunk tonight, but I do know that a drunk man's thoughts are a sober man's feelings. So we're going to get some valid opinions tonight, right? Right, Tony?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, let's get right to it. I mean, if you're like, Brandon, if you're, we'll break down this duel. But if you're an Ohio State fan, where are you wanting this to start? Assuming 25 is a bad spot. 141 would be a good spot. Or what are you thinking?
To be honest with you, I think that's a good question. And Ben and I, we recorded ours last night. We actually talked about this duel a little bit. I think starting at 125 is the worst possible scenario for the Buckeyes. I actually wouldn't mind it starting at maybe a Colin Moore at 197. See if you can kick something off big, even potentially be able to, ride some sort of early momentum to score some points against Warner. Starting off at 141 is not a bad idea as well, unless you guys finally wisen up and throw Jay Nyerman out there, as it has been my opinion all year. But definitely do not want to start at 125. I don't want to face Spencer Lee and DeSanto back to back right off the gun of this match. No way.
You guys have some holes in your lineups everywhere you kind of look at. So it's either do you want to finish strong or start off strong? And I'm always a big believer on if you've got holes in the lineup, you've got to start strong and try to keep some momentum. Obviously, at Carver, that's always tough. There's really no momentum you can ride, right? So if you can come in and I think 41 with Pletcher and then Sasso, obviously a big name. He's wrestled in some big events. There's obviously back-to-back matchups that could possibly, your favorite at 41, 49. Possibly, it switches, right? So you never know what can happen. But let's start at 25. There's not a whole lot I think anyone can talk about this one. Spencer Lee's just been just dominant. Ross, you've been able to get your eyes on him quite a bit, and haven't got to see a whole lot of him past the second, third period, obviously. But Malik Heinzelman was a big recruit coming out. What are your thoughts? We'll start with Brandon here on Malik Heinzelman, on kind of where he's developing here at Ohio State.
And honestly, Tony and Ross, I think that's the problem. In my opinion, I don't think Malik is developing right now. In fact, I'm comfortable enough to say I think he's regressed from last year. When you look at Malik Heinzelman, he actually had some decent wins last year. He beat guys like, Elijah Oliver was one, an upperclassman who was bigger than him. He had a nice win over Alex Mackel from Iowa State, Mackel is a bad dude, who I expect to get on the podium this year as well. He had a win over Michael D'Agostino last year as well. Really, performed very admirably last year as a true freshman who's undersized and got pulled out of redshirt. But when you look at him this year, I'm just not seeing it. And in my opinion, he's regressed, to be honest. And then on top of that, of course, he's going up against Spencer Lee, who I really hope, we as Buckeye fans had the pleasure of getting to watch guys like Tomasello and Kyle Snyder, Miles Martin, all there for 4 years. I hope the Iowa fans are truly appreciating what you have in Spencer Lee, because he is one of the most amazing wrestlers I've ever got to see wrestle. I love his approach. I love what he's done for the program. I don't see this match getting past the first period, actually. Maybe second period tops, but it's either going to be a pin or a tech fall, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was one of the things. So, folks that didn't listen, I listened to the Inside Trip podcast this week, so I got all of your takes, and I'll know if you're going to try and pull a fast one on us and try to have two takes in the same week. One of my favorite lines from your podcast was like, I don't even know if you know who Iowa's backup is, but you were like, Iowa's backup could probably come in and win this matchup handedly. and like Tony said, I feel like that's saying something, because Malik Heinzelman was a dude that represented the USA at the cadet level two times. Is that 2 or 3 times?
A couple times, yeah.
Yeah, he was a multiple cadet world team member, won UWW juniors. I mean, he's a guy that's really good at freestyle, obviously, on his feet, but Spencer Lee's obviously tremendous on his feet, and then when he gets on top, his tilts are otherworldly, and as I'm going to steal your thunder, Spencer doesn't pin a lot of guys in his tilts, but Heinzelman is one of the guys he was able to pin in his tilts. So, I mean, Lee's not even a pinner, but this is a potential situation where 5 points. 5 points is at the low end. Like, he could maybe get 6. I feel it just seems weird to say that 5 points is the lowest he could score. But I mean, am I out of line?
No, I think you're right. And when you look at Malik Heinzelman, look, I think Malik Heinzelman is limited offensively on his feet. Everybody knows he came through high school and into college. He's got a nice carry, kind of one of those barrel rolls. But people kind of scout that out. It's surprisingly, though, he's developed a little bit of this duck under this year, which I think I would be willing to kind of bet some money that's accounted for most of his takedowns this year. I don't see him hitting a duck under on Spencer Lee. And we know how great Spencer Lee is on top. I mean, that's what he was known for. But for people that think that's all he has, I think you're seriously selling him short. But one of Malik Heinzelman's biggest deficiencies, though, is his bottom game. And against a guy like Lee, that's not a deficiency that you want to have, because he's going to expose it, take advantage of it, eat you alive, and probably wink at your mama in the stands if she's there.
That's one thing that I've been seeing. Some of these higher end, lower, either talking about like pulling red shirts and these freshmen, is you can either getting on the bottom is the most important thing, I think, when you're coming to the college level and being successful. The ones that have all the accolades and aren't used to being on the bottom are really struggling right now. We see that with Alex Thompson of Iowa, obviously Brody Teske, both guys had some troubles out of here that we know here, but there's names all over, I feel like, in the country that has some success at the high school level. And if you can't get off the bottom, you're going for a ride, and it's with 4 points near fall, that it goes quick. So Spencer Lee, easy 5 points here, I think, unless Malik's able to somehow stay out of those tilts. And as we're talking about freshmen here, I want to move up to the decision to Jordan Decatur, to pull him out of redshirt. We saw him, speaking of Brody Teske, at Fargo, and I was like, holy cow, dude, this guy he's very physical. He's going to be a guy that's going to be very successful at the next level. How are Ohio State fans feeling about Jordan?
Well, look, when he signed with Ohio State, of course, I mean, we were feeling great. We love Jordan Decatur out here. It's hard not to. He's very fun to watch. I felt that even as a senior in high school, he could have gone toe to toe on his feet with a lot of guys in college at that time. And you'll see that now. I mean, when he's on his feet and he's got the energy and his explosiveness, I mean, he can do great things. I think he just wrestled Seth Gross, and I think he took Seth Gross down, 2-3 times in that match. I mean, that says a lot. The problem is that I don't agree, and I've been on record with this before. I don't agree with them pulling his red shirt this year. I thought it does a disservice to him. It does a disservice to the team next year, in my opinion. You're pulling him out of red shirt to make him wrestle a weight that he's already missed weight, I think, twice this year at open tournaments before his shirt got pulled. He's always struggled with the weight cut, even in high school. Therefore, it's obviously going to, impact your gas tank. And when you're a guy that, really thrives off your explosiveness, you need that energy. I don't like it. I don't like it at all, but it is what it is here. And, now he's got a tough match against one of my favorite wrestlers in the country, let alone just on the Iowa team, in DeSanto.
It's an interesting matchup because both these guys are going to brawl, right? I think they're both good from their feet. It'll be interesting to see what they look like on the mat. There's having that experience, and I don't agree with the red shirt is pulling it either, because that experience at the college level for some of these freshmen is just really needed. And if you don't have to pull it, if it doesn't matter for the team, why do it? Now, we don't know what's going through the coach's minds, right? Like maybe he was having trouble not being the guy, right? And they're like, well, we better pull it, otherwise he's going to go a different route. Who knows? There's all reasons why these kids, why it's the right fit. But
yeah, I think you make a good point there.
Yeah, I mean, part of me makes this. I'm excited just to see how this goes on their feet.
As am I, and it's one of those things where, you talk about freshmen coming into the Division I college wrestling level, and mat wrestling is an extremely difficult adjustment for a lot of wrestlers that are freshmen coming up. And Jordan Decatur has always kind of struggled on the mat as well, on his bottom game. He's an amazing freestyle wrestler. He's amazing on his feet. But when you struggle against top-level competition, national level competition in high school on the mat, you got to assume that you're going to struggle against the best guys in the country who have gone on to wrestling in Division I college wrestling. If it was me, I would, I'm keeping him red shirt. I'm continuing to develop him. But at the end of the day, Jordan Decatur, he's a gamer. He's highly accoladed. He was a big-time recruit, and they had a hole at 133. Quinn Kenner can't hold the weight, as obvious. We may even see Quinn Kenner at 157, right, going from 133 to 157. And I wouldn't be surprised in the least bit if Tom Ryan said, would you want to do this for us? If you do, we'll support it. Decatur, he's a competitor, and I would not be surprised if that happened. Decatur said, look, I'm going to do it.
Ross, what are your thoughts? We're talking about guys on the bottom. What were your thoughts, Ross, on DeSanto in the third period against Nebraska?
So that's where I'm going to draw a lot of parallels, I think, is the DeSanto versus Decatur and Alex Thompson versus Spencer Lee. So Lee is obviously a different animal on top, but what we saw in that Indiana series is that DeSanto does have a top element, and I feel like he kind of wanted to put that on display against Purdue, against Indiana. He was turning guys. And in the match between Spencer Lee and Thompson, we were, me and Drew were talking that Alex is really good on his feet. That's something he's known for. I mean, he's a junior level national team member based on how good he is on his feet. And when you see Jordan Decatur take down Seth Gross, you're like, okay, this is obviously somebody that's really good on his feet. But when you're matched up with somebody that's just as good or better on their feet, and so that's kind of where the parallel is. Like Spencer Lee and Thompson, they're both plus wrestlers on their feet. Spencer Lee's also a plus wrestler on top. and DeSanto is a plus wrestler on his feet. So I mean that's where the margin's negated when you have him versus Decatur. Where Gross, he's a good wrestler on his feet, but he's more known for his top wrestling. So taking down Seth Gross is obviously, it's really, really tough. But, can you ride Seth Gross? Can you get out from underneath Seth Gross? That's something DeSanto struggles with, is getting out from underneath. We saw that on display with Ridge Lovett. Can't get out from underneath.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a match that's going to be decided on their feet, there's no question you're going to take Austin DeSanto, and DeSanto's probably even got the margin on top. So when you hold the advantage in 2 out of the 3 positions, I think there's no question that it's going to be highly favored DeSanto. And if he's continuing to turn guys like he did in that Indiana series, it could be over pretty quick. Just because if he's turning guys for 4-point moves, I mean that's huge in this new near fall era we're in.
Yeah, look, all of those great points in general, and one of the things I worry the most about this match between Decatur and DeSanto is DeSanto is not the guy that you want to wrestle if you're struggling with energy after the first period. I mean, just not, because in all the matches that I've ever watched of Austin DeSanto, and don't get me wrong, he's had his moments he's had his moments where he hasn't performed to how he should have, but it almost looks like that by the third period, if he's not going the same pace that he was in the first period, he might be even going at a harder pace, which is one of the reasons why I love watching him so much. And it doesn't favor well for Jordan Decatur in this match, assuming the match goes to this period. I don't see DeSanto pinning Decatur. I just don't. But and I actually believe that Decatur can probably get a takedown or 2 off DeSanto, but DeSanto will not let up. I mean, you guys see it every day. He's not he doesn't let up. And eventually he's going to wear him down. He'll catch him in a carry eventually. I really do believe that, and it's whether he catches him in one of his patented carries for 2, or whether he gets 2 plus 2 or 2 plus 4. So yeah, I do agree with you. DeSanto has the ability to blow this match wide open. What I really want to see, though, from an Ohio State fan, look, we know Decatur is cutting a lot of weight. We know he's going to struggle with energy, struggle with gas tank. I want to see if he's able to go out there against another top-level opponent in Austin DeSanto, much like he did against Seth Gross, and I want to see if he can dictate some parts of the match, get to DeSanto's legs, and get a couple of the takedowns. Because if that's the case, okay, we got stuff we got to build. We can build on. You can go toe-to-toe with the best guys in the country on your feet. We got to build on that. So as an Ohio State fan, that's what I'm really looking forward to there.
So we spent a lot of time on 125, 133, and I think we all know what the what the outcomes of both of these are going to be, right? There's 2 unique guys there from Ohio State, but when we get into you mentioned Jaden Ironman, 141. We saw the tweet, Instagram, where the heck it was, right, Ross? And when I found out that he was coming right away, I was like, all right, they've got to put him in the lineup. But do you do that to Max Murin, who's been grinding that, out? I've always just said, this is the year you're gonna have to. This is the year you're gonna do it. You're gonna have to do it. This is business. This is big business, actually, not just business. And unfortunately, you love a guy like Murin, but Jaden Ironman can come in right there, and he can be a contender here at 141 pounds. Is this duel when we can maybe see Jaden Ironman? What are you hearing on Iowa City?
So, this is where it gets interesting with Ironman. Is he's not qualified for Olympic trials, but obviously that's his goal, right? He moved to Iowa City because he wanted to further his freestyle career. So there's 2 ways left for him to qualify for the Olympic trials, is to either win the NCAAs or win the last chance qualifier, which is like 2 weeks after NCAAs and just before the Olympic trials. So, I guess the question comes down to is, does he wrestle at the NCAAs, give himself more time to recover, and get, whatever you want to talk about, peaking all that great stuff to get his body ready to go for the Olympic trials, give himself the best shot at winning, or does he stay in redshirt, do the Thomas Gilman route, win the last chance qualifier, and make the world team? There's good arguments for both, because obviously we've seen the Hawkeye Wrestling Club can probably go both ways. I think for me, Jaden Ironman is staying in Olympic red shirt. That's my 2 cents. I'll just end that statement there.
Okay. Brando, you mentioned he should be. What are your thoughts on why he should? Same reasons for me. Go out and get that title, or?
So I think it's a few different reasons. For one, I was just sitting here trying to look up the date of the last chance qualifier. Look, I know what we have. NCAA's or what the weekend starting around the 18th of March, and I thought, if I wasn't mistaken, that I thought the Olympic team trials was right at the beginning of April, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Right.
So you're talking about a very small window in between there for the last chance qualifiers, assuming, and I'm just going to make an assumption, I haven't found it, I haven't done the research, assuming that the last chance qualifier occurs after the NCAA championships. If that's the case, you really only have a week or two for the last chance qualifiers, because I thought the Olympic team trials was somewhere around April 4th-ish. And I could be wrong on that, but here's my thing, guys. And this is something that Ben and we talk about ad nauseum. One, next year is never guaranteed. Okay, we've seen that before. Next year is never guaranteed, whether it's injuries, whether it's extenuating circumstances, whatever it is. Even if he comes back next year to wrestle for Iowa, look at all the other guys that are coming back as well. Okay, you got guys like Yanni, who's been kind of his kryptonite, even though Ironman's the only guy in NCAA college wrestling to give Yanni a loss when he did at the South Beach Duels. But when you look at the landscape this year at 141, and I love Luke Pletcher, I think right now he is the favorite to win it. But you throw Jaden Ironman in there, and you got a guy who is not only competing for a top 3 spot, but also is in the legitimate conversation for national champion. And what that does is a couple of things for Iowa, in my opinion. One, I will absolutely call Iowa the favorite right now for the team title. But I am not going to discount Penn State, and where you have some Iowa wrestlers who are performing really well right now, they're relatively unproven or unaccomplished at the NCAA tournament. Max Murin is number one. What has Max Murin ever done? He's never been on the podium. And when you look at his career and who his biggest wins are against, nothing really stands out that says, yeah, this guy is a guaranteed, he's getting on that podium and giving Iowa points this year. No offense to Max Murin. And Pat Lugo's the same. Look, Pat Lugo, I was a big fan of his for a long time, but Pat Lugo is very inconsistent. Okay, round of 12 as a freshman with Edinburgh. I think he was 0-2 as a sophomore, 0-2, maybe 1-2, and then he transfers to Iowa. What was he, 7th place last year? He was 7th place. So,
he might have lost that match to. I think he lost the 7th place match to Jarrett Dagan of Iowa State, actually.
Okay. So 8th place. So you're talking at 141 and 149, even though Lugo's the top-ranked guy in the country right now, deservingly so. These are guys that have not scored a lot of points at the NCAAs. And if you take a guy like Ironman and you pull him out of redshirt, here's a 3-time All-American who would legitimately be considered a title contender at 141. That's the points that Iowa needs to dethrone Penn State this year and bring the crown back to Iowa, in my opinion. And it would do another thing. It would qualify him for the Olympic trials, and it would help Iowa win the national championship. To me, it's a no-brainer, guys. But I'm out from Iowa, and my opinion is as worthless as it could be. But if I'm Tom Brands and you're willing to pull a red shirt from another guy that we'll talk about later, Ironman's the guy I'm pulling, in my opinion. You have to.
I agree. It's been, I guess, Iowa just has been making big headlines the last year and two, and I think Tom Brands company, like their mentality of how they're approaching getting recruits on campus and landing them, these transfers, their mentality has completely changed. And they're looking at it as a business now, more of, it's still a family, right? But if they want to get back, it's been 10 years, get back to where they want, this is where it's at. I mean, feelings can be hurt. I mean, here's Nelson Brands. He gets the nod, and then no one knows really what's going on there, and he's not there anymore. So there's been some hidden messages there, but as far as who's been going, how the interviews have gone. But anyways,
you talk about hurt feelings, and Ben and I, we've debated this so much on our podcast, and we don't see eye to eye on this. Ben's like, no, you save Ironman for next year and you win 2 titles in a row. And I'm the type that's like, look, you got to win the first title before you can start thinking about winning the second title in a row. And Max Murin, what is he, a sophomore this year? He's a sophomore, so he's still got 2 years left in him, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So, if he's performing rather solidly right now, even though his best win is probably who's his best man this year? Tristan Moran. His best wins against a guy like Tristan Moran. Yeah. Neither one of those guys have been on the podium, and he just got beat by Chad Redd. Well, if Max Murin has 2 more years to develop and to compete for Iowa, bring Jaden Ironman in so that way you can say, look, we're all in for this title this year. We are all in for this title, because I don't believe Ironman transferred to Iowa to become a better collegiate wrestler to win a title. I believe he transferred there to become a better post-collegiate wrestler. And when you look at the guys redshirting this year, this would set him up in the absolute best position to bring home the title and also help Iowa win the team trophy.
All right, so Max Murin, Ross, I wanted to get your take on this. He gave up his first takedown of the season, gave up the loss to Chad Redd. Chad Redd is like a roller coaster. Sometimes I feel like he's clear up here, like he can beat anybody, and other times he's like, you don't know what the heck you're getting from Chad Redd. But maybe this is an opportunity for him to show, if he can give Pletcher a go, maybe he keeps his spot. But with that, obviously you're saying Ironman stays in an Olympic red shirt, so this is a big match for him to see where he stacks up.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts with putting Ironman in the lineup. I mean, he didn't announce his move until November. I mean, is that when we were talking? Was it November, December when we were talking about Ironman transferring into Iowa? There's the whole fact that you'd have to be a student to be competing for the University of Iowa, right? So, is he taking classes? I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. Maybe we're lazy journalists for not checking to see if he's even in the student directory.
We were looking at Brody Teskey's at Iowa Central. We don't even know if Max Murin's enrolled at Iowa. Not Max Murin, Jaden Ironman.
Right.
Enrolled?
Well, to be fair, I think today is the first day of University of Iowa classes, so you wouldn't have to be enrolled until today. But, I mean, the fact still stands that Ironman would have to be in classes, so they would have had to make this plan right away. I just don't know if Ironman, I don't know where he's at health-wise. I don't know where he's at, It's been a while since we've seen him competing. And he didn't go to any he's not on this European trip. He's not competing at the Eurasian. Even I know the ranking series, I think you had to be, the USA could only send 3 guys at each weight. So that's the reason why Spencer Lee didn't go, right? Is because we sent our 2019 World Team Rep, our 2018 World Team Rep, plus a world medalist at 57 that maxed us out, and that's why Lee didn't even receive an invite. So I don't know if that's the same deal with Ironman, if that's why he didn't go over. But, I mean, he didn't go to the Matiso Pelicone. He didn't go over to Eurasian. He's not competing freestyle, which you would think he would be. He probably won't be at Pan Am's because that goes to the world team member to qualify the weight. And I don't know. To me, Max Murin's going to go. He's going to wrestle this match. I think he's going to get, even if he loses, Luke Pletcher's the number one guy. He's going to have Nick Lee the next week. I mean, really, he's kind of going through the fire right here. If he wins, he's definitely going to cement his status. But even if he loses, he's losing to the top guys. That doesn't prove he's not podium worthy. It proves he's lost to 3 guys that have earned All-American status, is what it proves. So, yeah, he's literally lost to guys that are in the top 3. And I think everybody knows. Everyone knows how good Chad Red is. On a day he can put it out there. I kind of hope. I guess the one thing I'd look for and hope for is that Murin puts on a better match. It's better than the Red match. He gave up 2 takedowns and didn't look like he even threatened to take a takedown. So I think that would be more what I look for. Is Murin even close to scoring on these high level guys?
All right,
when you look at Luke Pletcher and Murin and the similarities between them, common opponents, Pletcher's 15-0, Max Murin 6-9. I think, you talk about Chad Red and Murin and the loss he just took to Chad Red. Obviously, a tough loss. Chad Red's a great wrestler. I always joke around and say the season doesn't even begin, though, for Chad Red until the national championships, because he'll have a very up and down season throughout the regular season. Then suddenly he goes out and he gets on the podium, his first 2 years. I would be very surprised unless there is some sort of, Carver Hawkeye Arena effect that gets to Luke Pletcher. And this isn't me being a Buckeye homer, but I would be very surprised if Murin, unless the whole tactics of the match is just keep it close, just focus on keeping it close, I would be very surprised if Murin looked better in this match, because when you look at Luke Pletcher and what he's done this year, he just majored Tristan Moran, he just majored Chad Red, he beat Mitch McKee 10-6, dominated Dylan Duncan twice this year, outside of 2 sudden victory wins, one against Dom Demas 2-1 and one against Real Woods, which was 3-1. Dom Demas obviously took 4th place last year, and Real Woods, look, I would not be surprised if Real Woods was a guy that made the finals, depending on brackets. I would be very surprised if Murin looked good in this match.
You don't think Carver plays in?
That's what I said, though, unless there's some sort of Carver Hawkeye Arena effect. But
I missed that.
Pletcher's a grizzled veteran. Okay, he's been in big matches. This is his senior year. I think if there's a 1 or 2 guys on the Ohio State team that can avoid being carvered, for a lack of better terms, I think Pletcher is one of them. But I do think this is a good opportunity for Murin to go out there and say, and prove himself, to say, I can score points for Iowa at nationals, because if he can't, Penn State still has talent to keep it close, guys, in my opinion.
No, 100%. And that's kind of where I think that Murin has that opportunity in his home environment with, hopefully, the weather's been awful in Iowa for every home event, basketball, football, late football, and now wrestling is just kind of getting this where it's snow, it's ice, it's cold. But I think with, maybe 14,000 fans, maybe Pletcher feels it a little bit, and Murin can kind of capitalize on that and make that match. I don't know if it'll look that close in Minnesota if they wrestled, but if they wrestled in Carver Hawkeye, I feel a little bit better about it. So that's kind of my take on Murin Pletcher. But there's a really big match. Go ahead.
Can I just get your guys' opinion on this? I just want to know, point blank, if it was up to you, should they pull Ironman or not? If it was feasible, the ability to do so, would you pull Ironman this year for Iowa?
Yes, for me.
I still say no. I don't. I think they're better off leaving Murin in for this year. I do.
Okay, I've always been curious about that, so I appreciate the candidness.
Well, I think just as a as a fan, I think that the idea of you put Ironman in there too, like people are like, it's like, I don't know. I just feel like fireworks are going to go off. Stone Cold Steve Austin's going to come out. Jay Ironman's going to break spears and crack it over his head and be like, boom, Jay Ironman's here. You guys are all SOLs. Like we are coming for that title, you know. Like that's just what I want to see. But I love Max Mirren, like great freaking kid. But the reality is that would be freaking awesome to see. But we might not see it. I trust Ross's instinct of what he's been hearing out there. So maybe we won't see it. But let's move up to 49. All right.
Huge match.
Sammy Sasso is another one of those kids that was highly coveted coming out. This is Carver's a place where this is a type of kid that could step up against Pat Lugo, who not flashy, but he's been getting the job done at 149 for the Hawkeyes. What are your thoughts on Sasso, Brandon?
So for one, let me start out. Like I've been probably unreasonably hard on Pat Lugo this year, and I think it's because, in my opinion, Pat Lugo has always struggled with consistency. But when you look at the season that he's had, I mean, he's having a great season, well deserving of the number one ranking right now. Sammy Sasso on any given day can beat anybody at this weight class, and I don't think that's really something that's not really going out on a limb. I mentioned to Ben yesterday that I think if there's one guy on the Ohio State team, especially one young guy, where he could probably care less about Carver, it's Sammy Sasso. He has that moxie to him. He's got that attitude. He's a guy coming out of Pennsylvania. He's kind of a roughneck type guy. He goes hard on the mat. And I actually, where Sammy looked really great beginning of the year, we haven't seen him quite make another jump as the year has gone on. But look, at the end of the day, he's got 2 losses on the season. He's got a loss to Brayton Lee from Minnesota, who's been kind of his arch nemesis, and then he had the head scratcher loss against Brent Moore from Virginia Tech when Moore was able to catch him, put him on his back, and pin him. Sasso, later avenged that loss as well. I like Sasso to win this match, and I'm not going to be very popular with Iowa people, but just something tells me that he's going to go out there. He's gonna strut out there like Sammy Sasso does. He's going to battle hard, and I think some of the things that he does is not a great matchup for Pat Lugo in my mind.
How's his gas tank, I guess, is what I'd be curious about.
We've talked about this a lot on whether we think Sammy's, cutting a lot of weight or not. There are times when he looks like he can keep going, and there's times when he does look like he's a little wore out. But I would ask the same thing about Pat Lugo. How's Pat Lugo's gas tank? Well,
so here's where I draw that in is, Sasso this year, his gas tank maybe not, it hasn't been as on as you'd like it to be, whereas Pat Lugo is having the season of his life, right? He's beaten Austin O'Connor in the Midland Finals, and to me, Pat Lugo is coming. I mean, he didn't have the greatest performance against Nebraska, but he's coming in a little bit more polished. He looks a little bit more man on a mission because this is it for him. Whereas, Sammy Sasso, if he's having gas tank issues, their only NCAA head-to-head meeting was a sudden victory win by Sasso 6-4. So that's why I asked if Sasso's fading late, and the last time it was decided in sudden victory, if you're gonna lose that edge late, then you kind of give your advantage to your opponent if you're having gas tank issues. So to me, if Lugo's coming in where he looks like a man possessed like he did at Midlands when he was just beating people that, he's wrestling matches that I'd never seen before, it's kind of a different guy.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. One of the things, though, just from my experience watching Lugo, is Lugo's not really a guy. I look at Lugo as more of a counter wrestler. Sometimes he'll get off to his high crotch with on his own,
Fair.
And I like to see that. I do like to see that. But I think some of the things that Sasso is really good at, he's very good. Guys get on a high crotch on him. He's able to sit the corner, and he's gotten very good at that Jagger style cradle from sitting the corner. One of his go-to takedowns that he's had a lot of success with this year is basically a straight-on single leg to his opponent's right leg. Well, Lugo, from my experience watching him, Lugo's not a guy that's creating angles. What does Lugo do? Lugo wants to brawl. He's going straight in, walking straight into that. So I think some of that favors Sasso. Either way it goes, I think this is going to be a hell of a match. I can't wait to watch it. I did pick Sasso to win this match, but maybe that's just me just not completely on the Lugo bandwagon yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one is probably as close as, like, if you're trying to draw parallels to that last duel, Murin came in the favorite, but he was 0-1 against Chad Red in his career, and we saw go to Red. This is probably that same setup, that same trap match setup where Lugo's favored, but he's 0-1 against his opponent. So, I mean, from that perspective, I feel like me coming into this duel, that's probably what I view as the same parallel, is Lugo's favored, but this is probably the biggest trap for any Iowa favorite. Overall, I feel like I really don't know how this match is going to go. I don't know if Sasso's going to be intimidated by the bright lights. I really don't expect him to be. But, I mean, I don't know. Lugo's looking tough. He's looking solid. I feel like his game plan's been a lot different this year, and I'm basing a lot of that off of his Midlands run, and then against Iowa State, he's always struggled with Jarrett Dagan, but he seemed to have a little bit of a different game plan against him, and he won that duel match against Iowa State, and I feel like that was my turning point where I was like, is Lugo going to be for real? He beat Dagan. All right, let's see what's going on. And then he won Midlands, and I'm like, okay, that's where I kind of finally made this jump where I'm more in on what Lugo's potential is, because I feel like he's starting to take those things. He's listening to the coaches. He's seeing what he needs to do in a match, and I feel like that's really pivotal. So that's kind of where I thought Lugo might be making a little bit of that senior jump. I do want to jump into this 57 matchup. So is Quinn Kinner going to be the guy, the Ohio State's 33-pounder? They've listed him as probable of the last 2 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. But you just call, Elijah Cleary went out and wrestled this weekend, who's been the typical 57-pounder for Ohio State. Up and down season. He looked a little better this weekend. I honestly don't know if they're going to throw Quinn Kenner out there. In my honest opinion, I don't think they should. I think it would do a disservice to him. I don't think he's big enough to handle it. I think at this point in time, with a guy like Quinn Kenner, you kind of go into some sort of quasi-damage control. Let's get him at a comfortable weight. Let's get him wrestling open tournaments. Let's get his confidence going back up, because we have some guys clearing out next year where Kenner can slide in at an optimal weight. When I look at Ohio State next year, a Decatur at 41, a Kenner at 49, and a Sammy Sasso at 57 sounds great to me, assuming things work out like you think they would or should. I'm not a fan of Quinn Kenner wrestling 157 this year. I'm just not. I don't think he's going to give you much difference in results as you're going to get from Elijah Cleary, in my opinion. So I do anticipate seeing Cleary wrestle this match.
All right. Well, I just thought that was just kind of banana worlds. I mean, you can see an upper weight guy jump 2 weight classes. That's not that crazy. Like, I think about Chad Beatty for Iowa. That's probably most who are going to listen to this podcast will relate with. Was a 74-pounder. Couldn't be J-Bo. Couldn't be Phil Keddy, so he went up to 97. And it was similar with like Penn State, where you had Matt Brown wrestle up at 97 when he was a redshirt freshman, maybe. So it's just like one of those things where you see a guy make 2 weight class jumps. You usually see it in the upper weights, but when you see Ohio State listing their guy that was at 33 at 57, that's where it's kind of like, holy crap, what the hell's going on?
Well, think about Keyshawn Hayes' struggles when he went from 41 to 49 and finally up to 57. Now you're talking about a guy like Quinn Kenner, who going from 133 to 57. So exactly what you were saying, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So Caleb Young versus Cleary. Obviously, this one's going to favor Iowa a lot more. So these first three matches, honestly, I feel like the Mira and all of them, they have a distinct wrestler you think is going to win. Up until you get to 49, where you get Lugo, Sasso, depending on who's hot, you're probably going to pick someone different. But at 57, it's probably going to be, it's back to that. Iowa's probably most comfortable to win that matchup. Is that kind of how you're feeling there too, right? With Elijah Cleary, I mean, I don't know if I feel bonus, but just because we don't really see Caleb Young bonus a ton of dudes.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Look, I fully expect Caleb Young to win this match. In fact, I was hoping to get to ask you guys the question of what do you see Caleb Young accomplishing this year? Do you guys, realistically anticipate or expect him to make the finals or maybe vie for the title? We know he rocked Deacon twice at NCAA's last year after losing to him in the regular season, even though, Deacon's looking amazing this year. The one thing about Caleb Young, and I think, Tom Brands, if I recall correctly, hit on this last year, is that they wanted to get Caleb Young more confident and attacking more, because when he attacked more, he had success. So if he continues to do that, look, I think if he does that, I think Caleb Young could actually put a bonus against Elijah Cleary. If we see the Caleb Young that goes out there, really, really controls and dominates the match and gets to as many of his attacks as he can, I'm a big fan of Caleb Young, to be honest.
I think Caleb Young has all the potential in the world. I think he wrestles a lot of guys closer than he probably should. I think you can see, if you look back at a lot of Iowa middleweights, I think you'd probably see that, where there's a guys with a ton of upside potential, guys that can place really, really high at nationals, that they don't really blow the crap out of people, even though they can beat them comfortably. So that's kind of, Caleb Young perfectly fits that mold, where he's a grinder. He's gonna beat you by 4 points, and it's not even gonna feel like it was a close match with that 4-point margin. But that's kind of what I see Caleb Young is. He could probably, like you said, he could probably get to his offense more and score more, but he's a guy that, for whatever reason, doesn't. I don't know. Hager, you got any different opinion?
He has been what Iowa has had around this weight class. I just feel like for a long time, you know that he's going to grind out the match, but he could lose it in the last second, and that's what's I feel like people are on their edge sometimes when Caleb Young steps to the mat. And Brandon's exactly right. And Tom Brands, if his confidence is there, rock solid. He could be contending. But as the season has progressed, that confidence in that shot. So I'm not sure who he's rolling with in the room. If he's rolling with Alex Marinelli, guessing a lot of those shots are getting busted down. So is his confidence not there to take that constant shot, put that pressure on? If that switch can be switched to where he's just nonstop taking shots, good to go. But this match, no problem. This should be bonus. Next question. Let's move to 65. But I want to see more offense for Caleb Young for sure. That's about all I got to say about Caleb Young at this point.
100%. Yeah, I feel like this match, I don't really know what there's a lot to talk about in terms of Cleary versus Young, so I think you're right.
Should we even talk about 65?
I was just gonna say, let's just kind of, the only thing to talk about at 65 is it's a little bit interesting, where Ethan Smith was a former Iowa State commit, and now you see him down at 65 for the Buckeyes, and you kind of think about where he could fit in maybe with Iowa State had he honored his initial commitment. But in terms of wrestling Marinelli, I don't think any of the panel we have on here, I don't think anybody's really worried about how he threatens the bull. Is that pretty safe to say? We I don't know about bonus, but I feel pretty comfortable about Marinelli winning by a good margin.
Oh, I agree with you guys completely. I wouldn't expect to see bonus here. I think just because of Marinelli's style, Alex Marinelli, he's an Ohio guy. We love him to death. The Bull is the perfect fit for Iowa wrestling. We root for him constantly. I don't expect to see bonus in them match for just a couple of reasons. One, Marinelli style. And then additionally, Ethan Smith style. Like, Ethan Smith has proven that he can get to almost anybody's legs in the country. Where he struggled is finishing those shots. And that's not a good formula for when you're wrestling a guy like the Bull, who it can be very difficult to finish on. I mean, look at the guys that he beats. He beats great guys, the Isaiah Whites, the McFaddens, the Wicks, all those type of guys. And usually they're very low-scoring matches. And a lot of the times it's Marinelli getting the only takedown, maybe an escape, because those guys haven't figured out how to take him, Alex down himself. And for a guy like Ethan Smith, who is a very good wrestler, was a highly ranked recruit, I think, a top 50 recruit, as you said, originally to Iowa State. He has shown he can get to anyone's legs. He's just struggled to finish those shots. And the Bull is not a guy where you're going to go out and practice and get better at finishing shots.
So let's move on to 74 pounds. Michael Kemmer. I saw him do an interview today for Media Day. What were your takeaways? Did you get a chance to watch that? And what are we going to get with Michael Kemmer here, down the stretch?
So I know personally from listening to #InsideTrip that Brando is the most excited to see this matchup in the duel. So before I turn it over to him, all I'll say is, this one, it's Kemmer's going through the ringer right now. He's had Dylan Lighty, Purdue, where we saw him turn on late. He had Mikey Labriola, where he had to win it late in the third period. He's now got a top 10 Caleb Romero, and he's going to follow that up with number 1 Mark Hall the next week. So, I mean, this is the gauntlet run for Kemmer, and this is quote-unquote his easiest match out of all 4 of those guys, and I think this one's going to be a tough one, so I'm going to turn it over to Brando.
So, I mean, you're absolutely right. This is one of my most highly anticipated matches to watch in this duel, and for a couple of reasons. Look, I've gone on record, and I'm not going to change it. I have picked Michael Kemmer to win the national title at 174. Now, part of that's probably due to my spitefulness towards Mark Hall, but I truly enjoy watching Michael Kemmer wrestling that much. I enjoy his style. He's an absolute competitor. But more than anything, Caleb Romero was a guy that many Ohio State fans, Ohio high school guys were really excited about having commit to Ohio State. Here's a guy who was like all-state in football, 4-time state champ in wrestling, never wrestled, out of the season, never went to Fargo. I believe he lost to Labriola at the Pittsburgh Classic, what was formerly the Dapper Dan. I think he lost to him, 1-0 or 2-1. And last year, a lot of us was very disappointed in how we saw him compete at 165. Now, this year, he's up at 174, and he's having a much better season. He's ranked in the top 8 as it stands right now, 13-2, with his only 2 losses coming to 2 All-Americans, 2-1 loss to Labriola and a 1-0 loss to Devin Skatska. So that speaks volumes for Caleb Romero. I do anticipate and I do expect Kemmer to come out on top of this match, but I want to see how Caleb Romero competes against him. I think that's the important thing for Ohio State fans, because right now, being a guy that's ranked in the top 8, look, you're on the fringe of getting on that podium. When you look at what Caleb Romero is good at, look, he is a hard hand fighter. He loves to hand fight. He's got great level changes. He is one of the most athletic guys you will find on the Ohio State wrestling team. You know, he loves those blast doubles, low blast doubles, high blast doubles, all kinds of that, which people found out last year, and they were able to scout that and prevent it. But what Romero has done this year, and I'm not saying he's Jordan Burroughs, but it's a lot like Jordan Burroughs did when he continued to make jumps in the freestyle circuit. Jordan Burroughs had an amazing blast double, but when did he get really good? It's when he was able to combine that blast double, and then when he missed it, transition to a single leg, which is what Caleb Romero's been doing this year. And I think that's been a very key thing for his success that he has this year. I want to see if Romero can take Kimmerer down and get out from bottom. Those are my two biggest things. And, you know, Kimmerer has showed a tendency this year to wrestle close matches against good guys. You saw him with a 3-1 win over Labriola. You know, he had a close match with Jacob Cavasio, if that's how you pronounce it, this year as well. And Caleb Romero has done the same thing. So I want to see Caleb Romero keep it to a takedown match going in the third period, and let's make it fun. But with that said, I do expect Kimmerer to win this match. I mean, look, it's Michael Kimmerer. He's one of the best in the country. And as I said, I've got on record as picking him to be the 174-pound national champion.
I think that's I mean, that's probably pretty high praise to put Kimmerer in that category, right? I mean, before even seeing him face off with Hall, he's had some of those matches like you talked about with Indiana where it was a little bit closer. And then Lighty, he took until the third period before he really separated himself. So I'm really excited to see this match. I kind of wonder. The craziest thing to me is to think about like Caleb Romero when he came in being a 65-pound recruit and Ethan Smith being a 74-pound recruit, how they flip-flop. At least, you know, with Smith came in, that's kind of where he was projected for Iowa State. So, yeah, that's definitely probably one of the biggest matches I've got circled outside of 149. We'll move into 84 where
real quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick. What's the possibility? What's the talk about? What's Nelson doing? Is he going back down to 74? Could we see Michael just not wrestle this match to prepare for Hall, and Nelson Brands at 74? I've heard some rumors of him going down.
From the Iowa perspective, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, to give up on Wilkie and Nelson at that point of the season they were at, Nelson was weighing, 176 when he wrestled against Chattanooga. I don't even know if he was on weight for the Sammy Colbray duel. So, I mean, he was never truly a 184-pounder. He was giving up a ton of weight, so it kind of makes a lot of sense to keep him at 174 to be a reserve option, especially since I really don't know what Kimmerer's injury status, what kind of held him out all of last year. So, I mean, that would be a really good possible scenario. If he came out, I'd still favor Brands because this is the guy that can go up a weight and beat a top 10 guy at 184, wrestling 4 pounds underweight.
Yeah, if they are truly, if this is what I've been hearing, that Nelson is going down, there's no point in keeping it at 84, get him back down to 74. This could be an opportunity where they don't likely need Kimmerer, and they could throw Nelson out there for a tough matchup. So we'll see.
I would be so disappointed at that.
Throw that out there as a possibility.
I would be so upset if that happened, guys. I'm just going to throw that out there. I do want to know from your guys' opinion. Look, what are you expecting from Michael Kimmerer this year? I know he's battled some injuries, but here's a guy, one of the top recruits in the country coming out of high school. I think, look, in his 2 years as a starter, he has 6 total losses. And I know one came to Michael Jordan. He's got a couple of losses to Jason Nolf. There was I think Jason Nolf basically. What are you guys expecting from him? And is Michael Kimmerer fully healthy this year? I guess that's something that a lot of people would like to know.
Ooh, well, what am I expecting? I think he can. I think he can challenge for a national title. He did have those losses. I mean, a lot of those losses in his sophomore year. He was definitely injured at the national tournament when he took some of those losses. I think you can tell from, and I don't want to take anything away from Tyler Berger, but I think you can tell in his medal match as a sophomore that he wasn't himself. He had to miss the entire next season because he didn't do surgery, and then he did do, I think he had 2 surgeries when he medical redshirted,
Correct.
That medical redshirt's not actually approved yet, but pretty well speculated that it probably would be if that were the case. But his whole last year he had 2 surgeries, so he's coming back from a lot, and I think his potential is up there. In that Indiana match, he pretty much went a month between matches, so I kind of, after talking through that, I do kind of write a lot of that off of it'd been a long time since he made weight. Maybe that's why he was so underperforming in that Indiana match, and he came out at Purdue, and he just got stronger as against Leidy as that match went on. So I think his upward potential is, it's through the roof, and I think he's fine.
Right on. Do you think he's a senior this year? Is he eligible, or are they going to try to get him an extra year due to last year?
I mean, he's eligible for sure. Whether he, I guess, I mean, the possibility is there. I don't know if it's, from what I understand, it's not approved yet. Otherwise I think there would have been an announcement, and I don't even know if it gets approved if he wants to come back. He's already graduated his undergrad. I'm sure he'll finish his master's. I mean, he was a genius coming out of high school. He was a guy that looked at Stanford, Lehigh. I mean, he was looking at some legit academic programs, and he chose Iowa to kind of have a nice balance of both wrestling and academics for what he was majoring in. So, as far as academics, I don't know if he really needs to come back for a 6th year for what he wants to do afterwards, but I think he's got a good case to come back if he wanted to, and I don't even know if he could move up to 84 next year because he doesn't look like a small 74-pounder. My 2 cents.
Crazy to think that he actually wrestled 149 in his redshirt freshman year.
Yeah, that was. That's what's kind of the craziest thing about Kemmer is he came in that 49-pounder, and you kind of look at that he was in that same bracket as Vincenzo Joseph, and now here they both are at different weights. They're at 65 74, and maybe they win national titles this year, and Kemmer could maybe come back for, like we said, his 6th year, he could be at 84 pounds, so that wouldn't be too crazy either. But I speaking of 84, I kind of want to get into that match too, Tony, while we can. And Ava Saad coming off this huge Carver Hawkeye win. I don't know if you've seen the interviews from Carver Hawkeye, but the only thing I want to talk about Abe is when I was listening to that interview, like, I've heard a lot of redshirt freshmen talk in interviews, and Spencer Lee's probably been the most polished. He was a true freshman his freshman year, but as far as like freshmen go, that was one of the more polished interviews I'd heard. And he's a true freshman. This is a guy that fresh out of high school, and he was talking so succinctly. He had his mind straight, and he just had a lot of good things to say about that first match in Carver. And he came out, he got a win against a former All-American, bright lights, 12,000 fans, and, I mean, Ava Saad, sky's the limit, right?
Ava Saad comes out, and not winning the Carver debut, obviously, but just the fact that the shirt was pulled was eye-opening for me. Or what brands and company are willing to do, right? So that's why Ironman. Why have it happen to a guy like Wilkie who's been grinding his rear end off, right? He's a multi-sport athlete, and he's where he's at now. Why why pull for Assad and not, why not bring in Ironman? So like they already kind of, I don't know.
Bingo. No,
You know what
Tony,
I mean?
I'm
Like
with you.
it's the same situation.
Tony, I'm completely with you on this, and this is the one thing that baffles me a lot. Look, first of all, from an outsider's perspective, Abe Assad has, all the talent in the world. I mean, here's a guy, and what's even better about him, I don't think he's one of those guys who completely dominated so much at the youth and high school level to where maybe we've already seen him get close to his ceiling. I mean, two-time state champion out of Illinois. He was a cadet Greco national champion, I believe, in Fargo. I know he won a freestyle national championship as well. And then obviously everybody knows he won that cadet bronze medal at the Cadet World Championships. But at the end of the day, when I look at this, Abe Assad, he's either gonna it's gonna be hit or miss, in my opinion. He's either gonna go out there and perform well and score good points at nationals, or he's not. Just like we see a lot of true freshmen do when they get to that tournament. We've seen this before with lots of true freshmen. I use this all the time. Look, you look at a guy like Adam Kuhn from Michigan. Adam Kuhn from Michigan had an amazing freshman year. Went out freshman year at nationals, didn't get on the podium. And you've seen it more than once. So in my mind, if Iowa's truly really all in, is Abe Assad really going to guarantee you to score that much more points than a guy like Cash Wilkie than a guy like Jaden Ironman if you pull him out to wrestle at 141? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does to me, but I've talked about this on the group chat. My theory with Abe Assad is, and I've already kind of hinted on this, that they view him as being even or plus with Cash Wilkie, so he's got a little bit more upside. You kind of count on both of those guys coming in being maybe round of 12. You're hoping that they can shoot a little bit more, and Assad's upside's maybe just a touch higher. And you think that you roll with that because he gives you the more points potential in 2020, and then in 2021, if Kemmer comes back from that medical red shirt, you can bump him up to 84, slide Nelson into 74, and now you have a red shirt for Abe Assad. So that's kind of my crazy theory that is just totally unconfirmed, but maybe that's what happens.
No, and it makes sense. I've always struggled with looking forward to the next year before we accomplish the goals in the current year, and it's just difference of opinions right here. 184 is a crazy weight class, because after Zahid Valencia, who's going to be the guy that rises to the top to be that number 2 spot? But it's also kind of a deep weight class. You got guys like Hunter Bolin, who is just having a phenomenal season. A guy like Trent Hidlay, who in my opinion is probably the second best guy at the weight class. And then let's not forget about, the Lujans, the Louis Dupre, Aaron Brooks, who of all the freshman 184s outside of Hidlay, he's just as battle-tested and ready to compete as an Assad. You got Taylor Venz, who great win by Assad in this last match, a phenomenal win. But Taylor Venz is a guy who, if he catches fire, just like he did his freshman year when he finished 4th, he can go from, not getting on the podium this year to actually making the finals. I mean, heck, he gave Zahid Valencia his closest match this year. And that's not taking into consideration other guys like a Nino Bonacorsi, and so forth and so forth. So I'm so curious to know that what does the Iowa coaching staff see in that room that says, yes, we got to pull Assad's red shirt. We got to do it now, because something has to be going on in the room that says he's that much better than a Brands and Cash Wilkie. Or else I don't know why you pulled him.
Yeah, I mean, I love it that they're willing to pull it. I'll just say that. You're exactly right. What's going on in the room? I just love the fact that Brandt is willing to to do that with a guy like Cash Booker that has been with the program, and Nelson, obviously, we know the ties there. So that just tells me that this is the year, and that's why I'm just confused with. I'm expecting Ironman to be there at some point, but they're wanting to make a statement. So Abe Assad, gets the go, and he proved that he's definitely worthy of taking over this spot. Obviously, the last duel, Rocky Jordan. I mean that guy's been. We all know that those guys can battle, but Abe Assad obviously is a little bit. I guess he's had a ton of matches to go. We don't have a ton of matches to go off of, right? But right now on paper.
And I think this match has the potential to be an exciting match.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. My apologies. But when I look at, when I was talking to, a couple of people yesterday, I said, look, in my opinion, I think Ohio State has the chance to win up to 4 matches. You're talking Colin Moore, you're talking Luke Pletcher, and then obviously you have Sammy Sasso, Rocky Jordan, and then maybe 5 in the in the off the wall chance that Caleb Romero keeps it to a 1 takedown match and strikes gold in the 3rd period against Michael Kimmer. I'm not expecting that, but this match, between Rocky Jordan and Abe Assad, this could be a very exciting match. Unfortunately, I do think that Rocky Jordan is one of those guys that can get carvered. I do think that Rocky Jordan not competing all last year in red shirt, due to injuries and whatnot, that hinders him. It's great that he just went out against Illinois and got a real nice win against Zach Bronnagel. That's a great win for him, but we need to see it more consistently. And as good as a win as that was for Rocky Jordan, when you look at what Assad just did by going out there and beating a guy in Taylor Venz and beating him handedly, a guy like Taylor Venz who took 4th as a freshman, I mean, you got to give the edge to Assad, but this could have the potential to be one of those really exciting matches against 2 freshmen who are really looking to basically kind of laminate themselves in the 184-pound weight class landscape. So I'm very excited for this match.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the fact that coming into that Nebraska duel, what I was most concerned about was how Assad would handle going underneath Venz, and he did that, and he, passed that test with flying colors. I think he wrestled him on his feet fairly well. I mean, Venz's takedown was an Abe Assad miss, a whiff on a headlock attempt. So I think Assad is a lot better than what we've been able to see. We just haven't had a lot of eyes-on opportunities, and that's probably what, these coaches have been able to see out of Assad. They've had that more hands-on experience to see that. So that's kind of where I think that goes, and I'm feeling a lot more confident at 184 after seeing how he handled Venz, how he handled going underneath, and that was just like, okay, Abe Assad, he's a real player this year. So
yeah, and I think you really nailed it there with, if Assad was able to go underneath Venz and have success, I think that bodes very well against a guy like Rocky Jordan. Rocky Jordan, unlike his other brother, Rocky Jordan's a guy that lives off the tilts on top, and if he can get those cross wrist tilts, he can score a lot of points. And that's where he really shines in, and that's actually how he got that win against Bronnagel, against Illinois. But if Assad can get out against Venz, I would fully expect him to get out against Rocky Jordan, especially in Carver. I like Assad to win this match. It just did baffle me that they pulled his red shirt when I still can't get on board and saying, yeah, he's guaranteed to score that much more points than a guy like Cash Wilkie will.
Let's move up to 97, and I want to get your feeling on how your Ross for sure here with Iowa starting. Feel more confident with Assad. 97 with Jacob Warner. Where's the confidence level? Colin Moore, I think he'll get this is his match to win here, but I want to say I want to look past this matchup. But what's your confidence in Jacob Warner? Getting the stand. Can he push for a Friday night matchup?
So, to put this as succinctly as I can, Jacob Warner, this is something that Potentially Dangerous has harped on, that he can beat the number 5 guy and the number 55 guy in the nation by the same score. He's a guy that goes out and wrestles a lot of the same matches the same way. And, that match against Eric Schultz, I couldn't even believe, I was just so locked in. I didn't even realize that there was a minute to go in the third period. And I was like, holy crap, there's literally only been 2 points scored in this match. And then all of a sudden, Schultz gets that takedown late, and he steals that match from Warner, and you're like, Jacob, what are you doing? Just get to your offense, you'll be fine. And the trademark with Jacob Warner is he wrestles guys close, and the matches he does win, I feel like, he gets that takedown, and he gets a cheap tilt. I don't want to call it a cheap tilt, but he turns a guy late, and he picks up 4 points, and all of a sudden the margin doesn't look as close as it probably should have been. And, it's just okay, that this is a guy that you know what to expect. And I don't know, with Colin Moore being the number 1 ranked guy, confidence-wise coming in, I'm probably not as positive, more than just the fact that it was a loss. Even if it would have been a close win, I would have been he's not really giving you an indication that he's going to just be the guy this year. He's going to be the same guy he was last year, which is he's still really good, but just not separating himself, I guess.
Yeah, he's not separating himself. Like you said, it's like a consistent feel. It's consistent, right? You know what you're going to get from him, but it lacks that killer instinct to you know what? I'm going to go knock off number 1 Colin Moore at Carver. He needs a Austin Santos slap in the ass, let's get it going. Come on. That's what Warner needs.
Love it.
A slap in the face from Tom and Terry Brands dude, you are freaking good. Get your butt going. Right?
There's so much to talk about with this match and these two guys, and I could probably spend an entire hour talking about it. First of all, let's just focus on Jacob Warner for a second. I've always thought, first, they wrestled Nebraska last week. Our fellow mutual friend Earl Smith from the Open Mat said he placed the over/under on points scored by Nebraska at 5.5, and I picked the over because I thought that Eric Schultz, even though he had never beaten Jacob Warner before, for some reason I just had a feeling that he would beat Jacob Warner in this match, and then either we would get a win from either Taylor Vance or possibly Chad Red. But when you look at Colin Moore versus Jacob Warner, and Jacob Warner is an amazing wrestler with so much potential, but common opponents, Colin Moore's 42-1 against common opponents, and Jacob Warner's 19-10. I think one of the worst things that happened for Jacob Warner was in his redshirt freshman year when he went out and just beat the pants off of Willie Nicholas. You guys remember that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great win, looked phenomenal. It got everybody hyped up, but I think it put unrealistic expectations at that time in fans' heads. And to top it off, the Colin Moore that we're seeing this year is the Colin Moore that we saw his freshman year. He's wrestling with confidence. He is scoring a ton of points. Currently he's 18-0. He's got almost an 84% bonus rate. Look, Colin Moore right now is in the running for the Hodge title with these type of statistics. And this is a match where I think that Colin Moore can go out there and he can really lay it on Jacob Warner if he wanted to, depending on where the match starts. But the last time they wrestled was last year, I believe, at Big Tens, and it was a 5-2 decision. I don't think that Colin Moore's his mindset this year is much more aligned with his mindset his freshman year. He's wrestling carefree, openly, just going after that, and that's why we're seeing him do the things that he's done this year, which doesn't bode well for Jacob Warner. And I really like Jacob Warner. I think that fans in general really put some unrealistic expectations on him, though, because of how he came out guns a-blazing in that redshirt year.
Well, and his world, at the world level too. I mean, that experience, the expectations were there, I think. So, yeah, it definitely, I get that. Like, that's just Iowa too. I mean, you could be anybody. If you're a star at Iowa, fans think you should be the next coming of Jesus.
They expect all of their guys to win every match and win it big.
Exactly. So that is going to be a match that I do want to see Jacob Warner come out there with some confidence, and if he can get on a couple shots and finish a couple shots, that is going to bode well. Obviously in the match too for momentum, but for the future for him in the Big Ten championships and leading into March and NCAA championships in Minnesota. Those small things will add up to big things for Jacob Warner. Got to have a lot of those small things for him in his mind, I believe. It's just from an outsider's point, just looking at his demeanor, that everybody acts kind of differently. Now let's move on to 285. Tony Cassiope. This guy has been just a spark plug for Iowa and for 285 for Iowa too. The guys we've had here have gotten the job done. Underwhelming. Tony Cassiope is just, he takes shots. What I don't want to happen is Tony Cassiope stops doing it. Right? If that's what, like, a trend sometimes that happens at, I'll say Iowa, but it seems like that. Like, Sam Stoll used to have that snap single shot that he used to take, and he would, take tons of shots. Obviously, Sam Stoll had tons of injuries, so that might stop that. But Tony Cassiope is a fresh of breath air weight class at Iowa and just in general, I think, for 285 guys.
Oh, you guys got something special with Cassiope. I mean, look. First of all, he's going to go up against Gary Traub. All right, and Gary Traub has done a phenomenal job at filling in for the injured Chase Singletary. He wrestled Tanner Hall really close, lost 3-2 in that match. Prior to the season, I would say the majority of college wrestling fans and even people in Ohio would have been like, Gary, who? We call him Gas Tank Gary. He's doing great. But Cassiope, that's the real deal. Cassiope's up there on that level of the Jordan Woods, the Mason Paris, the Gable Stevensons, and those types of guys. I fully expect him to win, Cassiope to win this match. By how much, I don't know. But I did want to get your guys' opinion on Cassiope. Heavyweight is one of the weight classes where we always see like these, great freshmen come out guns blazing through the regular season and then kind of have a hiccup at the national tournament. What do you guys, since you follow him more than I do, what are you truly expecting out of Cassiope? Because let's face it, heavyweight in the Big Ten is an absolute grind, especially when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4, maybe 5 out of the top 10 at heavyweight in the Big Ten.
Ross, you go.
I think matching up with Gable is probably the biggest obstacle, which is, the obvious statement is obvious when you got the number one guy, but that's somebody Cassiope's struggled with. But as far as I think he's just fine with matching up with Mason Paris, who's ranked number 2. Anthony Cassar's no longer in the picture, which I don't really even know how I felt about that matchup. And I was looking forward to it on January 31st, but that's obviously not going to happen anymore. Cassiope's, like Tony said, he's a breath of fresh air. He's got great offense, and even in that in the Nebraska duel when I saw him get to that single. I was like, I'm glad he's still getting to that, just because I like seeing offense, especially when you're watching the fans walk out of the stadium. It's just nice to see, like, you guys are leaving something that's actually entertaining. It's just kind of like, what are you guys doing? But as far as how he matches up with guys that are unranked, he is bonusing everybody that's unranked. His only non-bonus wins are against ranked competition. So he's wrestling really well, and I hope he continues that. And I'm really interested to see how he does against fan favorite Gas Tank Gary.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun match to watch. I fully expect Iowa to win that match. I thought his win over Trent Hilger was that's a fantastic win for a guy like Cassioppi. Another one of my matches that I can't wait to see happen at some point in time is Mason Paris versus Cassioppi. I think that's going to be a great match because they're both phenomenal heavyweights. Look, I think Cassioppi, for Iowa fans, enjoy him. He's a lot of fun to watch for a heavyweight because, and I mean no disrespect by this guys, but just from an outsider's opinion, I got really bored with Sam Stoll and Bobby Telford back when they were wrestling in college. They weren't a lot of fun to watch, where Cassioppi is the opposite, in my opinion. I think if he doesn't win a national title throughout his career, or at least make the finals, I would be extremely shocked.
They just got to keep this one healthy.
Don't let him get shot in the knee, please.
Yeah, he's got. Yeah, just keep him away from gun. Yeah. Sorry,
I don't know if that's appropriate, but I had to say it.
It's still a sore subject with some Hawkeye fans, I'm sure. But Sam Stoll just had definitely some, when he came in, the Greco background, but he still had a snap single that he could drive through guys. And as years progressed, he lost that. He probably didn't have as much power coming off of it, so it makes sense. And that's what I'm saying with Cass. I just hope he keeps going. So I don't want him to protect something. Like, if you can keep him from protecting something against, these big time duels and the Big Ten championships, NCAAs, if he's out there just to prove himself like he has been doing as a freshman, then he'll be fine. But once he starts protecting things, and I don't know if that will happen, but that's when we have seen Iowa heavyweights get in trouble, is when they're starting to protect things and not just go get it. And that's been Cass's mentality that I've seen.
But look at his wins this year, though. I mean, people, it's so easy to get caught up in the hype of Gable Stevenson. It's so easy to get caught up in the hype of a guy like Hassar. Unfortunately, he's out for the rest of the year. Or even a Mason Parrish. You look at guys like Jordan Wood. I think Wood took fourth last year at Nationals. But when you look at Cassioppi's season, if I'm not mistaken, he's still undefeated with wins against guys like Trent Hilger. I think he's got a dominating win against a guy like Zach Elam from Missouri. And then let's not forget the whooping that he put on against Matt Stencil at the Midlands. I mean, he's done everything that the Iowa coaches could ever expect him to do now, which makes me think that this is a guy that has a legit chance, seeding dependent. I would not be surprised to see him in the finals at all. I really am looking forward to a match between him and Mason Parris. I think that's going to be a fun match to watch against two young guys with a little bit different styles, who are both athletic, even though Cassioppi's a little bit bigger, than Parris is.
And if we're just talking Stevenson, Cass, is who's got what to lose? Stevenson. I saw just a different Stevenson at the Big Ten Championships last year. He was just kind of lack of, I don't want to say lazy, but he just was like, I'm going to win this match, no problem. And if he loses, he just feel like he's got a lot more to lose than Cass right now.
You're right. You can't be more. I mean, you are so right on that. And the one thing that concerned me about Stevenson last year, because everybody was like, hey, this guy is the second coming. And let's look, let's not make a mistake. Stevenson is extremely talented, extremely accomplished, but what I saw last year is when guys didn't back down from him and they, the proverbial, they punched him in the mouth. Stevenson didn't know how to handle that because he hadn't been used to that in his career till then, and he struggled with it.
Yeah, I guess, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, how much have we seen Cassiope had to deal with? Him wrestling Stevenson and then Paris in these duels will be his first real. Hilger's has been his biggest test. Getting that revenge loss against Stencil was big, but having that big moment wrestling Minnesota, wrestling at the University of Michigan, those will be like two big landmark moments, whereas his biggest win to date happened on his home mat. So, I feel like Cassiope definitely needs to have that moment too before I'm really the sunshine is great, and everything. I don't know, just... You know what I mean? Like, optimism just isn't going to be flowing when you got a guy like Gable Stevenson as your opponent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I totally get it. Look, it's easy to get blindsided by a guy like Gable and all of his accolades, but let's not forget that if I'm not mistaken, I'm going off memory here, when Gable was doing all these great things before entering into college, wasn't Cassiope a 2-time junior Triple Crown winner? If I'm not mistaken, winning the folk style, freestyle, and Greco-Roman national championships. That says a lot, and he had a great redshirt freshman season as well. He is a guy that likes to attack. And I don't need to tell this to you guys, but me and Ben, my podcast partner, we have this conversation all the time. That's like, look, when you have guys like Gable and you've got guys like Kassar, you got an All-American like Hilger and an All-American like Jordan Wood, you throw in there the Mason Paris, who is having an amazing season. It's easy to forget about a guy like Cassiope and all the success that he's had and what he's done this year, because, in my opinion, people just lump him into the Bobby Telford, Sam Stoll style type of wrestler, heavyweight wrestlers for Iowa, and I don't think that's the case with him. So I'm just paying him a compliment. I would not be surprised to see him do very well this year, and he's very much in contention for that second spot to make the finals, bracketing assuming, obviously.
Definitely. I'm not ruling it out either, but I guess there's two big duels, there's Big Tens before I think we have a clear picture of what to expect in Minnesota. And like I said, he's got one of those big matches, Gable at home, and then he's got to wrestle Mason Paris on his home turf. So, there's a lot I want to learn about Cassiope. Him getting that revenge over Stencil, at Medlands, that was a big landmark win for him too. But just kind of seeing him, getting him not on his home turf is kind of where you want to see some of that growth. Like you said, I don't know. He's got that heavyweight freshman. There's a lot to be concerned about to knowing whether he's for real until you've seen a ton of data to feel like, yeah, he's the guy that's going to be in the finals. So, I don't want to be put into that same trap where Gable Stevenson was the guy. So, yeah. So, overall, I think we're looking at this Ohio State-Iowa duel. We're kind of in the same situation where we were with Nebraska, where there's going to be a lot of close matchups. We think there's two matches where that look like there's Ohio State's clear favorite, and there's a couple more they could probably steal, and we'll see if Iowa can get them back. That's kind of my analysis. Tony, what do you think? Just general thoughts, and kind of what do you think about wrapping up this duel?
Oh, Iowa definitely is gonna win the duel, and it's gonna be a fun duel for the people that do not like Tom Ryan. Iowa fans, there's some Iowa fans out there that are do not like Tom Ryan.
Why is that? Why is that? I mean, what? Because he didn't beat Pat Smith in the finals back in college? Why is that?
It has all kinds. I mean, that is another podcast too that maybe we'll do at Double Stall Podcast coming in middle of March. But for Ohio State fans, is 9 points? Is that a good duel out of here? Is that a good to get 9 points out of this duel? Is that good, or are you wanting more?
Look, I look at this duel in one way, really. I think Ohio State is obviously favored at 141 and 197. I wouldn't expect them to pick up bonus in either one of those matches. If either one was going to pick up bonus, it would be Luke Pletcher over Murin, just because of the season that Pletcher's having, and obviously the history that Colin Moore and Jacob Warner have. I think if Ohio State was to walk out with 9 points, that would be great. And ultimately, as Ohio State fans, assuming the matches play out like we think they should and everybody wrestles, to me, it's more about seeing how some of these other guys, like I said, a Caleb Romero matches up against a Michael Kimmerer. How does Sammy Sasso compete against a Pat Lugo? I think Sammy Sasso can definitely beat Pat Lugo to get to that 9 points, but it's going to be a tough environment to get against a guy who wants to keep that spot for Iowa. It's in Carver Hawkeye Arena. So I think 9 points would be a successful day for Ohio State. I just want to see them go out there and battle, go out there and compete, and watch a good duel.
Ross, you got any extra? You got any put a bow on this at all? I appreciate you coming on, Brandon.
No, I think this is going to be a tremendous duel. Really looking forward to it Friday. Hopefully the weather holds up. Iowa's averaging 11,000 fans, and I hope to see it as full, if not more full, on Friday night.
It's on the Big Ten Network?
Big Ten Network. 3 in a row. 3 weekends in a row.
Is there a basketball game on before?
That I don't know.
I don't watch basketball, so I have no idea.
Probably.
Jesus. It starts at 25, and if we miss another Spencer Lee, Iowa fans are going to boycott Big Ten now.
They're going to be pissed.
I get it. I think some people probably saw my tweet on it, and live TV is hard, and it's like sports, and especially with basketball, where they can linger these 30-second, 15-second TV timeout BS. I don't know how many timeouts basketball gets, but maybe Iowa could hold the matchup. God damn, I'm going to go on a rant here. All right, let's just finish it up. Brandon, I appreciate you popping on here. Ross, lining it up. I'll let you close us out here.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Obviously, the regular host you can catch on all social media. He's at Hager Tony. I'm at Ross Bartachek. You can catch Brando. Their podcast is The Inside Trip, and if you want to follow them on social media, I'm pretty sure on Twitter it's at is it Inside Trip 1 or is it The Inside Trip 1, Brando?
Yeah, it's at The Inside Trip 1. Yes.
Okay, and then how do they follow you personally? Because I know you got some pretty good tweets every now and then too.
Yeah, so my personal Twitter account is at Brando413. The Inside Trip is at The Inside Trip 1. And, of course, if any of you guys want to listen to our podcast and self-deprecate over Ohio State, bash on Penn State, this year I've been kind of hyping up Iowa as a two-time participant at Dan Gable's 2-week intensive Iowa training wrestling camps. I guess you can say I'm a little bit of a closet Iowa fan. So at Brando413, at The Inside Trip 1, and our podcast, you can find it at all your typical podcast locations, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Google Play, all that good stuff. So, and again, guys, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we wouldn't want anybody else to break down this Ohio State duel other than Brando. We're looking forward to seeing this matchup, seeing you at Nationals, and chatting with you more. As far as IA Wrestle content we got coming for you, obviously, my man Hager Tony and our other usual hosts that we got on here, Lars Underbaki, they're going to be doing some great work at Iowa Girls State coming up. What else, Hager? What else we got coming? I know you're the streaming guru we got here at the site. So
we're talking about maybe doing. I say maybe we'll see what happens, but possibly number 1 West Delaware versus Williamsburg in Class 2A on Thursday night, and then popping up to Waverly for the IWCOA. But there's talk that we might be setting up Thursday night now. There's possible 8 mats for the girls. So there's been such a good turnout for that. So we'll have that all day Friday or Friday afternoon live on IA Wrestle all through Track Wrestling, and then all Saturday morning we'll have that going. Do placement matches, finals will be live, and then shortly after that we will go live with the Rick Caldwell Invitational from Waverly, and we'll have some previews out for that too. But the real big tournament also this weekend is Iowa USA Wrestling State Championship from Cedar Rapids, 12 mats, live and archived. We'll be there on Sunday as well. My wife is due very soon, and I'm hoping that it's not half this weekend. Otherwise, Lars is going to get a swift test of how to set up tournaments quickly. So looking forward to it. Yeah, you can get all the stuff on our website. We've got a hub up right now for the girls state championship. We're going to have tons of who to watch, bracket breakdowns. Brackets were done here this evening. It's Tuesday night. So we will have brackets posted. Likely won't have brackets out till Thursday morning. They're going to look them over again tomorrow, fine-tune those. But you can expect brackets to be coming out on Thursday. So pumped for those, and we'll have all the breakdowns for that. So, yeah, thanks for listening to Potentially Dangerous, Brandon, and everybody out there. Looking forward. If you want to hear more of Brandon's content, he's going to be hanging out with us, Ross, in Minnesota, in the same house. We are going
I promise
to
not to break another chandelier this year.
Yeah, we haven't broke this to Brandon yet, but I'm going to have a whole setup, and we've got 12 dudes staying in this place, maybe 13, and we are going to attempt to have a 12-person podcast with Earl Smith on the banjo, Nick Ryder on the harmonica, maybe Earl is triangle. We're not sure, but yeah, it's something to look forward to in March.
It's going to be a great time. Look, I can't wait for it. Tony, I got to say, last year in Pittsburgh, staying with all you guys at the Airbnb was a phenomenal time. My apologies for breaking the chandelier. I got to ask you guys a question, though. Just let me ask you this, because I know how Iowa fans and supporters are in general for their guys. If it came down to it, 57 kilograms for the Olympic team spot, who's the better rep, Spencer Lee or Thomas Gilman? I'm going to put you on the spot right now. I want to hear it from you guys.
Well, I know Ross doesn't like to put any gas on the flames, but
that's not what I'm asking.
Thomas Gilman right now is him not getting the spot this year, from what I've been told, was maybe eye-opening, and he's done some things to change. He's gone around and trained some people overseas that people don't know about. Mm-hmm. He's got some people around him that are full. There's support there that has got his mind in the right spot. 2020 is very important to Thomas Gilman, and if he doesn't if he's not the representative at 57, I don't think we'll see Thomas Gilman at the University of Iowa going forward. If he is not, he will go somewhere else. It will be. I don't think it'll be a similar situation with Tony Ramos, so he was all upset. But I would think that if he doesn't get the spot, or if he loses it to Spencer for one, I think we'll see him out east.
That's a fair assessment. I mean, and can I ask you guys this? And if you don't want to answer it, that's fine. I know your guys' dynamics with the Iowa community is very close and personal. But between Spencer Lee and Thomas Gilman, who do you think gives us the best chance to bring home a medal this year from the Olympics?
Brando, this is our podcast.
All right. Okay, I'll
No.
take the question back. I get it.
No, I totally. It's like asking you to.
It's such a tough spot, right? Thomas Gilman is. Until Spencer Lee beats Thomas Gilman, I don't think you can pick against him.
Yeah, there's.
Spencer Lee is. No one's going to be surprised if Spencer Lee.
I had to put you guys on the spot. I had to, just for one question, because it's an Iowa podcast. I had to ask the question, so my apologies. Either way it goes, I hope one of those two guys represent us at 57 kilograms this year in the 2020 Olympics.
I think Ross, and you can answer this or not, but I know we're staying on this topic, but if Thomas Gilman beats Spencer Lee, people will be surprised. If Spencer Lee beats Thomas Gilman, no one will be surprised and they expected it. That's where I feel like Iowa fans are at right now.
I would agree with that sentiment. It's so hard because you're talking about two completely different style. Like Gilman, his in neutral, he's so hard to take down. It's just how quickly can he finish those shots because he gets in on attacks. It's just how quickly he finishes those senior level guys, those high level guys. Thwart him is what it comes down to, and you feel a little bit better about Gilman's gas tank, and maybe a little bit better about him in neutral. Whereas Spencer, you feel a little bit about his high octane, come out, going to kick your ass potential, and maybe he's gonna be able to lace you. So I mean, It's just there's two different worlds you're looking at, and on any given day, either guy could. Thomas Gilman's a silver world medalist, so his potential is known too. So it's just like. I mean, really, it's really hard. Even Cologne, I'll throw Dayton Fix in there. It's got to spit that out. Just talked about an Okie State wrestler, but I mean, there's a lot of good potential at 57 kilos for USA this time around.
Oh, I think it's one of the best years for 57 kilos. I know you guys are wanting to wrap this up. I had to ask that question. It's funny. Ben and I were just listening to some of our older podcasts when Gilman was graduating after, unfortunately, he didn't make the finals and win that title as a senior. And both of us said on that podcast that we thought that Gilman's game was more relevant towards freestyle and the international style. But where I think people get Spencer Lee wrong, in my opinion, is that everybody knows he's great on top. But Spencer Lee is a very, very underrated scrambler, and he's a very intelligent scrambler as well. And I think that's where he benefits a lot from. And plus, he's pretty good on his feet as well. So I had to put you guys on the spot. My apologies. I know you don't want to pick one or the other, so... my bad.
Yeah, it just harkens back to 57 kilos in 2016 when we got Dan Dennis and Tony Ramos. But now, I mean, this time around, I feel like fans are probably more open to what happens between Gilman and Spencer Lee. So, I don't think you put us on the spot. I think it's really hard for anybody to pick. To truly pick who they think would be better. I think a lot of it comes down to any given. Whatever the date they wrestle. I mean, you kind of want to go back to the football reference, any given Sunday, but I don't know if they're wrestling on a Sunday for Olympic trials. So, I mean, it really could be who's the freshest that day. Spencer's been wrestling this NCAA schedule, which seemingly, based on the data, has been really beneficial for a lot of our senior level guys. So, I mean, I really don't know. There's some. See, the problem is, Brando, this is a whole podcast. that's where the...
Right.
Yeah, so maybe we'll have you on right after NCAAs and we can really dive into this. We'll have a lot more data for sure. I think Gilman's coming back from his overseas trip after winning the Mauricio Pelicone. I think he was planning on participating in the Euregan, but I don't know if that's the case anymore. But with that, we've gone into a deep dive of Iowa, Ohio State. We do appreciate you jumping on, talking about this duel. We're looking to forward to some big things on Friday night. You can catch us, all of our coverage is going to be on iawrestle.com, obviously. We'll be on all of our platforms at iawrestle, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're doing pretty good about, spreading that coverage out onto all those platforms. So fans can check that out. Brando, you should check that out because obviously you're going to have a little bit of skin in the game too. So thanks everyone for joining us. You've heard our plugs for how to check out Brando. It's going to be in the show notes too, though. So don't forget to check out that if you really want to listen to a little bit more. This week's episode between Brandon and Ben Watson was really informative on, they had some good takes about the Hawkeye Wrestling Club wrestlers too. So I really encourage all the potentially dangerous wrestlers to check that out too. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.